welcome to Classics Confidential. Today I'm talking with Dr. Tony Keane, one of our ALs at the Open University.
I'm a research affiliate at the Open University.
Oh, sorry Tony, yes, a research affiliate. Tony, this in a way is a follow-up interview after the one you did with Jess in preparation, or in the planning stages rather, of your big conference on classics and science fiction. So tell us about the conference and some of the outcomes.
Well, it went absolutely brilliantly. I remember I said to Jess in the original interview that if I didn't get people from a broad range of disciplines into the conference and talking to each other, if it was all classical reception people, I thought I would have failed. And it wasn't all classical reception people. We had people from all sorts of places. We had people from across Europe. We had a whole series of disciplines represented: English literature, science fiction studies, classical reception. And we had lots of people that talked to each other in the lunches, and we had a superb series of talks as well. We had some great plenary sessions as well. We had really good plenary sessions from Nick Lowe and Edith Hall in particular, and Sophia McDougall, our author guest, who gave us a talk, despite the fact that she'd gone down with food poisoning the day before.
That's dedication for
that
you.
Was very dedicated, and I'm extremely grateful to her. She was an absolute star. But yes, I'm very pleased with the conference. It's been very well received. We're keeping the blog that we set up for the conference. I've been trying to keep that going with things that are of interest to people who are interested in the boundaries between classics and science fiction. So, and I begged you to put another post up in there actually in the next day or so. And we are looking to do some publication of the material. Some of it's going out into other locations. Liz Gloyn's paper on boundaries in things like Herb Millie's Love in the Mist and some other texts, also Pucker Pook's Hill she looked at. That's coming out, a version of that is going to come out from in an online science fiction magazine, Strange Horizons, which I'm very pleased about because that's exactly the sort of cross-fertilisation classics publishing in the science fiction text that I wanted to get coming out of the conference. Myself and one of my fellow conference organisers, Glenn Morgan, are going to be sitting down and working towards a proper publication of the material at some point, but I just haven't had enough time to sit down and think about the actual shape of the production. And we had over 60 papers. We had about 80 odd participants there. Obviously, I can't publish all 60 of the papers. I have to draw a selection.
Yes, it's a process of selection.
A process of selection, deciding what shape the book is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, that always actually takes, in a way, the most time, because once you have that framework, then you can move forward and then you do an effective book proposal. So.
But it is, at the moment, I'm not quite sure where I start from. I need to sort of...
I wish you good luck on that endeavour. It's very time-consuming,
as
you all know.
It's extremely time-consuming, but it's partly because I'm not getting onto it because I've got so many other projects that are going on at the moment.
Well, perhaps this is a good point to talk about, some of your work in this field and how your interests have been, if you like, developed and have been cross-fertilised by some of the papers that you heard at the conference.
Well, the main bit of work that I'm doing in this area at the moment is I'm trying to pull together a book that's a collection of papers that I've written over the last 10 years, some of which got published, some of which didn't get published. Some of it has just sort of gone onto my blog and sort of stuff, and so it's just, I've given talks on various things. I've got about 110,000 words of that, but it all needs quite significant revision and tidying up. And one of the things that I think I will need to do with that material is try and theorise it a bit more and be a bit more overt about the theory that I'm building around it, without being off-putting. Because I don't want something to be really theory heavy, because I think that would then be off-putting to quite a lot of the readers. I want it to be theory-like and theory-aware.
But I mean, also, at least personally, I find that, you know, sometimes you are driven by your case studies as well. There has to be a balance there. Because if there are no case studies, then you can also lose your readers.
Yes, it's primarily going to be a book of case studies.
I mean, I remember some of your work, for example, on Joss Whedon's universe, if you like.
Yeah, I've not really written much about classics and Whedon. I've written a couple of bits on other aspects of Whedon's work and feminist readings of some of the stuff he's done. But classics and Whedon I tended to leave to other people. A lot of people have got in there.
Yeah, he's a popular guy.
He's a popular guy indeed. But,
and also your work with Doctor Who.
Doctor Who is the main thing that I've done, I think, perhaps the thing I'm perhaps best known for at the moment. I'm more or less Doctor Who'd out. I mean, there will hopefully be a version of a chapter on Doctor Who I wrote that got published about 3 years ago. There will hopefully be a version of that in the book. There will be some of the stuff on Fires of Pompeii. I'll go back to some of that material and revise that. But I sort of Doctor Who'd myself out through editing a collection on the series, which came out in 2011, and that was me operating with my science fiction academics hat on rather than the classicist academics hat on. I do want to get back to Doctor Who at some point, and there's three of us that are talking around a volume on Doctor Who and its use of human history, which is not really, there isn't really a good book on that. Some people have been working on it a little bit, but we think there's scope for a good book on there.
So do you think it's important, you know, for you as a researcher to return to work that you have previously done and sort of maybe rethink it, revise it, recast it?
I think sometimes it is. I mean, in terms of the book that I'm working on at the moment, a lot of that is simply it's a means of bringing together a lot of material and having it all in one place, and just simply because it's all scattered in all sorts of little different places, and just bringing it all together I think will maybe provide a bit of coherence to the whole thing. I can provide sort of, you know, bring all the case studies and try and sort of possibly make some sort of argument that I'll discuss in the conclusion or something, although it might not be too much of an argument. It might be a bit of a, well, as this demonstrates, well, it doesn't really, but never mind, it's been a fun ride.
So do you find that your work is often sort of driven by your particular case studies, your interests?
I think I'm more of a case study person than a theory-driven person. That there are things that look interesting and I'll go and write something about that. I mean, sometimes it's somebody who says, do you want to contribute to this volume that we're doing? And that will be, you know, I'll have to find a case study that fits in with that. Sometimes it's just people just out. I tend to think of the case study first. I tend to think, oh, that's something that's interesting to talk about. And what I'll actually say about it, I may not know when I start.
That brings up an interesting point. I mean, why do you think it is important to discuss popular culture in terms of classics and classical reception?
Because this is how most people are experiencing the ancient world. And in the end, if you don't address popular culture, it's actually a bit anti-democratic. And I think classics could do with democratising itself a bit more. It's all too easy to sort of conceive of classics as it's for the Boris Johnsons and the Giles Brandreths of this world, and I've nothing against Brandreth and Johnson being interested in classics. That's fine, but I don't want Latin and Greek to be seen as only for these people.
Yes.
And nobody else need bother.
Yes. So, not to ring fence the subject, but to actually to throw the doors open.
I mean, it's all too easy to assume that Latin is the reward for the clever students. And this has been built in, I think, actually, to a lot of school curricula, certainly at my school we all had to do Latin, but the clever students could get rewarded with Greek. And there's many other stories that I've heard that classics masters would go around and they would direct the clever students into the classic 6 or whatever. Whereas I don't want classics to be a reward for clever students. What I want it to be is the thing that unlocks the potential of the student, whose potential will be unlocked by classics. So, I mean, whilst I don't want to ring fence classics, I also don't want to impose it on everybody. I think classics should be available to everybody, but not everybody should be made
forced
to do it, because for some students it's not going to be classics that unlocks their potential. It's going to be Russian, it's going to be my niece at the moment is taking a series of foreign languages, and Latin is one of them, but the thing that she seems really enthusiastic about is Mandarin, which is astonishingly good. And yes, I'd like to turn her into a classicist, but I know in my heart that actually the best thing for her to do is to go and do the subject that she's passionate about, that will unlock her potential. And this is a sort of I think this is a defence of the humanities in general, that the reason that we get people to do humanities degrees rather than business studies or physics or chemistry is because they will be rubbish business studies, physics or chemistry students, but they could be really good Latin and Greek, English, history or whatever.
Well, I mean, also because obviously I had a very different school experience. Sometimes if you force classics down people's throats, it can have precisely the opposite effect, and they grow to hate it, or to just automatically reject it without bothering to look at it.
It's done the subject no good at all. I think a lot of the problems with classics feeling beleaguered and trying to hang on in various places, and a lot of the people who come in and say, "Oh, Latin is boring. We don't want to support this. We're not in favour of what you're trying to do with Latin." A lot of that, I think, is because they were forced to do it. It didn't connect with them.
No.
They were bored with it, and they assume that this is fundamentally a boring subject.
And it's interesting because, of course, for me it was always the other way around. Greek was seen as the more important in Greek schools, and Latin was the sort of poor cousin, if you like. So in a way, coming to the British educational system is a very interesting kind of reversal of that for me. The more people are likely to know Latin first, and then maybe Greek, if at all. So I think it's very interesting, people's experiences and expectations.
It's a lot of it from our perspective, from the UK perspective, is that we're not frightened by the alphabet of Latin, and we are frightened by the alphabet of Greek.
Yes.
Which I always told people that's the worst thing you have to get past in Greek. If you've got past the alphabet, it's actually a much easier language to learn than Latin. It makes a lot more sense than Latin does, and the literature's better. And,
I think some of our interests are starting to creep through here. So, where to next, Tony?
What, for my work? Well, I've got a science fiction project that I need to be working on quite quickly, which is a collection of critical papers on the works of the author Ian Banks. And that's going to occupy quite a lot of my time. The next bit of serious classics stuff I'm going to be doing will be, hopefully, a book on screening Roman Britain.
That would be very interesting.
This is currently under consideration with a series that's going to be published by Edinburgh University Press. The series is definitely going to happen, and we now need to work up a form to get our actual volume within that series approved. It emerges from a conversation I had with Monica Serena in Liverpool a couple of years ago, where we just got in this conversation about the way Roman Britain is presented. And it seems mostly there are four categories in the presentation of Roman Britain. There's stuff about the conquest, which is usually attributed to Julius Caesar rather than to Claudius. There's stuff about the revolt of Boudicca. There's Hadrian's Wall, and there's King Arthur. Historical positions of King Arthur. And I thought it was interesting, might be interesting to go and look at that, and Monica said, well, you should work something up. And I thought, that seems like a lot of work, actually. I'm not sure I can commit to it. So what I then did was I persuaded another of the OU's ALs, Juliette Harrisson, to get involved with it. And so we're going to be writing the book together.
Fantastic.
And we're sort of dividing up the various, deciding who's going to write the first draft of which bit, and then we'll sort of chuck them at each other and go and revise the first drafts of it. All we know at the moment is that she definitely is going to get Chancellor 1, 2, 3, because I think she's screaming at me if she didn't.
If you dare try to appropriate
that's Juliette's. That's definitely Juliette's. Hopefully we'll get started the work of that in the new year. As I say, we need to get it formally accepted, but we've got the new year sort of mapped out as sort of when we're going to probably look at that.
Well, very best of luck to you, Tony, and to all your collaborators. Thank you very much for returning on Classics Confidential, and we hope to see you again in the future.
Okay, thank you very much for having me.